And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking to us every step of the way. God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been directing me every step of my life.
On the Word Network.
This is a new ministry which is just starting. Reverend Hood needs your help in sharing the good news of Jesus Christ and His power throughout the world. If you would be so kind as to send a donation to Nicholas Hood III Ministries of any amount, Reverend Hood will send you a free complimentary copy of his book of original personal prayers and beautiful photographs entitled The Test, The Strength, The Endurance, and The Way Out.
Thank you so much for being with me today. Today I want to talk about letting your light shine like a shining light in the stars. I've been preaching for the last several weeks from the book of Philippians. Today I go back to Philippians in the second chapter, the 14th verse and then the 15th verse. But listen to what Paul says. He says, "Do all things without murmuring and arguing, so that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, in which you shine like stars in the world." Let me say that again. Do all things without murmuring and arguing, so that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, in which you shine like stars in the world. The Apostle Paul, at the writing of this letter, is writing to the church at Philippi. And there at Philippi is his first church. He's been away from Philippi for some time. Paul is preaching all over his little universe. He's preaching to the people in Thessalonica, in Corinth. He's preaching in Ephesus and Berea, Athens. He's all over the world. He's making a name for himself. But Paul is writing the church at Philippi because the church at Philippi has written him a letter. They've heard that he's in jail. They want to know, how is he doing? How is he being treated? Is he well fed? Does he have enough clothes? They are loving Paul as best that they can. But word has come to Paul that in addition to their love for Paul, the people at Philippi have their own personal problems with each other. And you know, sometimes in life, no matter, even if you're in the Christian faith, no matter how high you get, no matter how strong or smart you might be, sometimes no matter how wealthy you might be, sometimes the human nature will cause us to be contentious and mean and strifeful with one another. I want to know, is there somebody looking at this program today who can identify with relationships where you don't get along with somebody? Is there anybody here looking at this program today who can say, you know, the people that I least expect that I wouldn't get along with, you know, we're struggling and we're complaining and we're not getting along with very well. And it is to these kind of situations that the Apostle Paul is saying, do all things without strife or murmuring. You know, sometimes in the church, there's strife and murmuring. When you think about your church, think about the kinds of things that tears people up, the kind of, you know, the difference in attitudes, the difference in philosophy, the difference in perspective. And sometimes it's just human nature that we bump heads. And Paul is saying, if you're bumping your head against other people, very often the organizations like the church, organizations like the club, your block club, your neighborhood association, sometimes we don't achieve as much as we can because we're too busy fighting one another, too busy backbiting one another, too busy undercutting one another. And Paul is saying, when you get beyond the backbiting, when you get beyond the strife, when you get beyond the jockeying for power to see who's going to be on top, that is the point when you begin to shine like a shining light. And that shine like a shining light, and he uses the plural. He says shine like shining lights. Paul is saying the church can be like a bunch of little stars out there in the universe. But the church can't be like the stars of the universe if the church is fighting among itself. Now, there are a lot of people today who aren't in church. And so you may say, well, that doesn't refer to me because I'm not in church anyway. But you're in this spiritual church with me today. And but your family, in a sense, is your church. And if your family is fighting, your church, your family, won't be the bright light that it could be. And Paul says when we get beyond the murmuring and the strife, that's when we shine like shining lights. And to me, my friends, that is a wonderful thing. When you see people who are of one accord, when you see friends who are cooperating together, when you see family that is cooperating together, you have a shining light. There's nothing like family when family is on the same page. But by the same token, sometimes in our family life, you have the worst fights. Some of the worst fights I've ever seen are in families. And when do those fights come? Be honest. Sometimes some of the worst you'll see in a family is when mama dies or papa dies or granddaddy or grandmama. And there are all kind of horror stories about sons and daughters, grandsons, granddaughters, jockeying one another to see who can get grandma's jewelry, to see who can get granddad's car, to see who will get mama's fur coat, to see who will get daddy's trophies. And, you know, we have to figure out, why is it that happens? And I think that sometimes it happens because the people we are closest to tend to be our family, at least by biological proximity. You know, your family life is the group of people, the group of human beings that we are born into. And when we're raised for several years in a family, we are closer to start out with in our family lives than anybody else. But by the same token, when somebody in the family dies, sometimes some of the descendants, the family members, will go after the money, will go after the property, will go after the car, will go after the clothes. And what the Apostle Paul, I think, would be saying to each of us is get beyond the murmuring, get beyond the strife. And when you can get beyond the murmuring and the strife, then you begin to shine like a shining light. Jesus Christ tells us in the Sermon on the Mount, you are the light of the world. And anybody with that light should not hide your light under a bushel, but rather let your light so shine that all men and women will see your good works and give glory to your heavenly Father. You are the light of the world. And think about that. What Jesus is saying is, you are special. And he's saying, you are the light of the world. He doesn't say you are a light in the world. He says, you are the light in the world. And if you are the light of the world, then let your light shine. But think of the people who are so gifted, so talented, so extraordinary, who for one reason or another do not let their light shine. And they don't let their light shine Sometimes because they don't realize how special, how unique, how individualistic they already are. And Jesus is saying, get beyond your fear. Get beyond those things that are holding you back. And he's saying, just let that light shine. And when you let that light shine, what happens, my friends, is all kind of people will come to you. And so that's the word I want to share with you today, that you are a light of the world. Jesus would say, you are the light of the world. And I encourage you to let your light shine. If you are grandma or grandpa, you're sitting at home looking at the Word Network today, and you're listening to Nick Hood, I want you to think about what I'm saying. When I say that you are the light of the world to your children and your grandchildren, you might very well be a light in the world. To the stranger on the street, you can be a light in the world. And how do you become a light in the world to the stranger on the street? Preach love and tenderness. Preach kindness and goodness. Preach patience, goodwill, self-control. Be sharing, loving, and kind. Jesus wants you to be a light in this world. The Lord wants you to shine. You may not think you have much of a shine, but God has a plan for you. And you are a shining light in somebody else's life. You are the light for your children, your grandchildren. You may be the light for the stranger on the street, somebody who doesn't even know you, somebody you don't know. But God has you here on this earth for a reason. And God wants you to make a difference, not only in your life, but in somebody else's life. God is calling you right now. And I encourage you today to be a part of a bigger mission. You know, what I'm trying to do in this ministry is really to share the good news of Jesus Christ in a holistic kind of way, in a very humanistic kind of way, to let the world know that Jesus came not for the rich, not for the people who have it all together. He says the sick have no need of a physician, but it is the sick people who really need to be healed. And so, my friends, today, I want you to let your light shine. Let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine to the east, let it shine to the west. Let it shine to the poor, let it shine to the rich. And we can do this together. That's what I'm trying to do in my ministry. What I'm trying to do right now is to share the good news of Christ with the poor, to share the good news of Christ with the rich, to share the good news of the Christ with those who have it all together, to share the good news of Christ with those who don't have it together. And I tell you, I need your help. I need you to be on this team with me in this process. We're going to wind down this session, but I'll be back in a minute. And when I come back, I want to talk a little bit more about shining your light like a shining light in this world. God bless you and God keep you.
America used to be considered a godly country. It doesn't seem to be that way to me now. And I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but it's so many things they're okaying for the wrong reasons. There's not godly reason. People need to really open up the Bible, the Bible, and look in it and really get it into their heart. And this, the way Reverend Hood is doing this is a comfortable way. It's not forcing anything on people. It's a comfortable way and a loving way for it to continue to move in that direction.
The way Reverend Hood presents it, you can understand it, and it makes you want to delve into the Bible even more so that you can see more, because it seems like the program goes off too fast. We need the bread of life.
We really do.
These days, we need it more than ever. And Reverend Hood's ministry on TV is giving us our bread.
And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking to us every step of the way. God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been directing me every step of my life.
On the Word Network.
Today I've been talking about letting your light shine like you are a shining light among stars. This is the image that Paul gives us in Philippians chapter 1, where he tells the people, stop murmuring, stop arguing, but work together. He's talking about the church, the early church in Philippi. And what he's saying is, once you get to that point where you're all working together, then you're going to shine like shining lights in the universe. And I like that image because everybody has a light. No matter who you are, everybody has a light. Now, some of us have a 30-watt bulb, others have a 300-watt bulb, but everybody has a light. And what Paul is saying is your light can be a lot brighter than it is right now. I think there's somebody looking at this program who is underutilizing your wattage. Your spiritual wattage is down here when it could be up here. And the way you really turn up the spiritual wattage in your bulb, the bulb of your life, is you got to figure out, how do I free yourself to ask yourself, how can I be a greater lover of humanity? How can I be more kind? How can I be more patient? How can I be more generous with what God has given to me? How can I spread the light? I'm thinking about this. There's a woman in my church back in 1985 or so. I'd just become the pastor of the church, and she asked me to perform her wedding, and I performed it. And what I learned was that she was marrying a guy who she had dated in college. And shortly after I married them, she called me up. She said, "Reverend?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I made a big mistake." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I forgot why I didn't marry that guy when we were 21. And she said, "But he's got the same character issues today that he had back then." And then she went on to say, "I am sick. I have a cancer. I'm not going to live much longer. And I don't want to leave all of my belongings to that guy." And she said, "I want to give the church $100,000. And can the church use it?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "I'm sorry to hear about your marriage, but yes, the church can absolutely use that blessing." And thank God she didn't die right away, but she slowly but methodically began to distribute everything from her dishes, the glasses in her house, her fur coats, everything she had. And then when she got to the church, she gave the church $100,000. And I split that offering up. We took $50,000 from her gift, and I just put it in the general operations of the church. And I hate to say it, but looking back on it, the church needed that money just to pay bills, and we spent that first $50,000 so fast, I can't tell you today what we spent it on. But the second $50,000, I talked to a young man in the church, sadly, Tom Sebron. Some of you may know him. He's a former NFL football player, but he became a stockbroker. And I asked him if he could help us create an endowment, a scholarship fund that was endowed. So we started with $50,000. And before that first $50,000, we used to give out scholarships based on a weekly breakfast that, a small committee of people in the church would do. But we could never raise more than enough than to give the children of the church $50 each. But when this lady died and we started an endowed fund for $50,000, steadily but slowly it began to grow. And when other people in the church realized that this lady had given $50,000, they began to give money. And now we have about 60 little scholarships that have all been pooled together into an endowment. And that endowment, as of right now, is worth $980,000. It started with one gift of $50,000. And one of the things I learned, and every child for the last several years, if they go to college, undergrad or grad school, we give them a scholarship of $1,500. And, we average about $46,000 a year that we give out in that scholarship. And the rule is we only give money from the earnings. And the rest of the money is reinvested. And that's how that fund has grown so well over 38 years. But I'm using that as an example to say that lady's gift is shining in death. And you and I have to figure out how we can let our light shine in life, but also you can let your light shine in death. And the way you let your light shine in death is you have to think ahead. You ought to be thinking right now about your family. Think about your children and your children's children, your grandchildren, and ask yourself, what can I do to leave a gift for my children and my grandchildren so that they won't have to struggle the same way that I did? That's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to put my little 2 cents together so that my children and grandchildren will have a better life. And I want you to think about your own personal life, the people who mean the most to you. And none of us want to think that we're going to die, but no matter who we are, one day we will die. And when you die, you want to have a will. I've said it before in this program, but I'll say it now. I had a brother who had a very well thought out will, but he forgot to do one thing. I don't think he forgot. He just didn't want to do it. He didn't sign the will. And I think in his own way, that was his way of saying, I don't want to sign my will because that means I'm admitting that I'm going to die. So he didn't sign it. And because he didn't sign the will, not everything that he wanted to happen in the will is happening the way he wanted it to. And so, I don't want to recreate that mistake. First thing I did when I realized he hadn't signed his will is I made a will. And I had it notarized. And I gave a copy to my wife. And I said, now, if anything happens to me or when something happens to me, should I go before you? This is putting everything in your control. And my wife's first reaction was, do you know something I don't know? I said, what do you mean? I said, we're all going to die. I said, I'm just trying to let my little light shine in death like it's shining in life. And, I want you, we only have another minute or so in this program, but I want you, I want to say thank you for each of you watching this program. I love it. Every week I'm running into people who tell me they like the show. I get letters from people all over the country, and I want you, if you like this program, write me a letter. Tell me you like it. 4535 Chrysler Drive. Look at the address that's on the screen for Nicholas Hood III Ministries. But I want you to think of yourself as part of my team. And this is a ministry, a team of ministry. And what I'm trying to do is really to present the gospel in good news. I'm really trying to present the gospel in a wholesome kind of way, in an inviting kind of way, a way that's not threatening, but a way that is inviting. And there are a lot of people who need to hear the word of God. There are a lot of depressed people out there. There are a lot of lonely people. There are a lot of people who are lost. who are confounded and confused and don't know where to start and where to stop, when to go and when to just stay put. And what I'm trying to do is to break down the gospel in a way that has become very clear to me. And I think it must be resonating, because if you're watching this program, it is causing you to think too. And I need your help. I would like your help to be part of this team of sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. And you could do it several ways. Number one, pick up the phone and call a friend and just tell them every Saturday at 2:30 you could be a part of this growing spiritual witness on behalf of Jesus Christ. Number two, you can support this ministry with your financial support. Number three, I want you to think about a planned gift to this ministry, a longer term gift. If you have a house that you don't think you will need, forever. If you have stocks and bonds that you don't really think you're going to be able to use all of them. I've had some people in my church who told me that they, raise more money, save more money for their pensions and preparing for their old age than they will ever be able to spend. And then the question becomes, if you have more money than you can spend, then why not share some of that money with a good work? And to me, this ministry is a good work. I would really appreciate your help. I love it that you're watching this program. And I have a favor. I want you to call a friend. Tell them next week, tune in, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time for Nick Hood Ministries. And I look forward to seeing you. So thanks so much for being part of this worship experience today. Remember, I'm praying for you, and I look forward to seeing you next week. God bless, and God keep you.
You know why I really love Nick Hood as a minister? I watched his father do it, and he took over for the church. And he was one of us, but he really turned out to be a great minister. I know it's hard, and that's something that I know that all ministers may not be doing what they're doing because for the right reasons. But I know it's hard. I know he's a beautiful man, and we've been knowing each other for over 50 years. I believe in him. He's inspired me in so many ways to do what I'm doing and try to be the best at it. Make sure you watch Nick Hood's ministries. You'll never be the same.
And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking to us every step of the way. God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong,